So once again, this confederacy of corruption, anti-union, Civil War losing party, the Democrats, have shown themselves to be the true representation of their party symbol, an ass. Okay, our president, President Trump, just announced that he's going to have to sign an executive order to fund TSA workers because the Democrats refuse to fund immigration enforcement until the Republicans agree to their open border policies. And President Trump stated that he will refuse that because the Democrats allowed millions upon millions of illegal immigrants to flood into this country during the former corrupt senile president's installation. Okay, it's just interesting, you guys, how our president has to sign an executive order to fund American workers, but the Democrats don't mind giving tax dollars away to Ukraine and to illegal immigrants and to their own money laundering, practices. But when it comes down to the citizens of our country, we are the ones that are left to suffer. And if you still believe that this party is for America, I'm going to say it once and for all. You will never get anything from an ass but shit.
Like, why are we doing this? We just don't get it. I mean, these are not rich people. They make around $50,000 a year. That used to be, or should be our wheelhouse. These are the kind of people that we should be fighting for. And now we're talking about affordability, and now we're denying them to their paychecks. And now here, and we knew going into it that shutdown of DHS would have zero impact on forcing any kinds of changes at ICE. And that's here we are right now. So what is it that we really get out of it? You know, all we've done is we've punished TSA and other employees under DHS and made us less safe, and now creating mass chaos in our air traffic system across America.
I just want to say I'm sick of the Democrats. They want to take money and spend it their way. They're not thinking and listening to the people and all the young people that have been killed. If it was one of their people, something would happen. Then they would act. They don't care about the people of America, and they don't care about America. Let Donald Trump do his job. Thank you.
The lesson that they're learning is that Democrats are weak, and that next time we just need to hurt working people and working Americans more. Hurt working people and working Americans more to get them to fold.
The negotiation didn't have a path to citizenship. It was entirely on their terms in order to get Ukraine funding, right?
Well, I mean, Chris, that's been a failed play for 20 years. So right. You are right that has been the Democratic strategy for 30 years, maybe. And it has failed to deliver for the people we care about most, the undocumented Americans that are in this country.
What's going on, family? I appreciate you guys for watching this video and rocking with me. What I'm about to break down for you is not a theory anymore. It's not some conspiracy that people could just brush off and say, oh, that's just right-wing talking points. No, this is something that is being said out loud, openly, with no shame. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to get caught on the wrong side of history. And we are watching in real time a political strategy that is willing to hurt American citizens. As you guys seen in these clips, I played the clips first and then follow up with my commentary. But to hurt the American citizens, your family, your job, your livelihood, just to gain power and control. And the crazy part about it is most people don't even understand why they are suffering. I'm talking about people that are directly impacted, people working in places like TSA. people dealing with shutdowns, people missing paychecks, and they can't even explain to you what's actually going on because the information is being controlled, filtered, and spoon fed to them in a way that keeps them confused. And when people are confused, they are easy to manipulate. And that's the game, that's the strategy. And what we're seeing right now with immigration, with government shutdown tactics, with media narratives, is all connected. This isn't random, this is calculated, this is intentional. And in today's video, I'm breaking it down, exactly explaining what's happening and why it's happening and why so many Americans are unknowingly voting against their own best interests. So hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And then I want to take a dive deeper into this conversation. When you look at this, right, what you heard in these clips is something that a lot of people are afraid to say out loud, but it needs to be said. You have individuals openly admitting that the goal is not necessarily to help the American people, but to make political opponents look bad, even if it means everyday citizens suffer in the process. Think about how dangerous that is. That means your paycheck, your job stability, your ability to provide for your family can be used as a pawn in a political chess game. And what makes it worse is that even some people within their own party have acknowledged it. When you have statements pointing out that certain policies or standoffs were never going to move the needle, yet they were pushed anyway, you have to ask yourself, what was the real purpose? Because it clearly wasn't about solving a problem. It was about creating pressure, creating chaos, and then controlling the narrative around that chaos. And this is where the media comes into play. Because if people actually understood who was responsible for what, the entire narrative would collapse. But instead, you have major outlets that people still trust, pushing selective information, leaving out key details, and framing everything in a way that directs blame exactly where they wanted to go. So you have everyday Americans blaming the wrong people, defending policies they don't understand, arguing with each other while the people in power continue to do exactly what they've been doing. And when you try to explain it to them, when you try to break it down in plain English, they're looking at you like you crazy. Not because what you're saying is wrong, but because it contradicts everything they've been told. And that's what happens when people are living in the echo chamber. They're not hearing both sides. They're not being challenged. They're being programmed. And the moment you introduce a different perspective, it creates discomfort. But that discomfort is necessary because the truth is a lot of people genuinely do not know what's going on. And the truth can be uncomfortable, like I said, and they are being misinformed. And in many cases, they are confidently wrong. And that's a dangerous combination. So now I want to take it a step further because this isn't just about one policy or one situation, right? This is about a broader strategy. And if you really want to understand, you have to look at it from a constitutional and historical perspective. The United States was designed to be a nation governed by its citizens with rights that are protected and not easily taken away. That's the foundation. That's what separates this country from a lot of others. But when you start shifting the focus from citizens and start prioritizing non-citizens in policy decisions, you begin to change the entire dynamic of how the system operates. And this is where the conversation about demographics and long-term political power comes into play. Because if you can reshape the population in a way that benefits your voting base, you don't have to worry about losing elections anymore. You create a system where your power becomes permanent, and that's not a new concept. Throughout history, political groups have always looked for ways to maintain control, whether through policy, messaging, or demographic shifts, meaning catering to a certain demographic of people within the pool of American citizens, right? Now, supporters of these policies will argue that it's about compassion, about helping people, about being inclusive. And on the surface, that sounds good. But you have to look at the outcomes. You have to look at the incentives. Because if the policies consistently result in weakened borders, increased strain on resources to help American citizens and I'm talking about legal immigrants who came over here and done things the right way, and confusion among citizens who is responsible for what, then you have to question whether the intent matches the impact, right? I give you an example, right? For my fellas and for my ladies, right? Let's say you're talking to your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. I don't like using partner because it's not a business, right? Love, when it comes to business, there's no feelings involved, right? It's particularly business, right? Business don't have time for emotions but results. So I don't like when people say, "Oh, your partner." But anyway, you have a significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and you may be talking to her as a man and saying, "Hey, it really bothered me when you did X, Y, and Z." But then the intent was to basically come across to get a better understanding, to basically improve the understanding amongst each other so y'all are on the same page. And that could go from our ladies as well. But then the impact is she or he is defensive and they looking at her like you always correcting me or talking to me like a child instead of an equal. Well, that's why you have to understand how things are coming across, but you also have to understand the actions, let alone so it goes intent, impact, and action, right? So the impact on how it's coming across to the person, how the message is being delivered, and how they are receiving it, right? Because you can have the best intention in all ways, right? You can have a good intention, but the impact is just not landing coming across the individuals to basically receive you the way you are intended to do it. So that's why it comes to actually making sure that you guys, let alone are having a communication style that fits the best interests of those you love, so you have an understanding to continue to approve together and what works for each other, right? And let alone also building each other up. Relationships take work. So I'm saying all that to say you have to look at the same thing politically. Their intention may be whatever they want to tell you, and you may receive it a certain way that you may think, oh, it's all good, but then the action don't line up. And the whole time they've been finessing you or manipulating you or making it seem that way or selling you a pitch with the intent to basically just get your vote. But the impact of that pitch isn't coming across the way you are not receiving it the way that they are basically delivering it, because the whole time it was manipulative. Sorry, family. Manipulative, right? And when you don't know that they're being manipulative, all you're doing is receiving a message as it is, and you thinking that, oh, this is all fine and dandy. And at the same time, you have a media environment where the vast majority of outlets lean in one direction, shaping public perception in a way that reinforces these policies while dismissing criticism as misinformation or extremism. And that's how narratives are controlled, and that's how people are kept in the dark. And when you combine that with a lack of civic education, meaning people going out there and actually doing their due diligence to inform themselves and doing the research to make their own choices, making their voice be heard by going out and vote, which is the action you have to take, and that's the only and the proper way to take action. But with lack of civic education, where people don't fully understand how government works, you end up with a population that is easier to influence and manipulate and less likely to question authority. And that's exactly what we're seeing. People repeating talking points without understanding the underlying issues, blaming the wrong entities for problems, and voting based on emotion rather than information. And when that happens, the system stops functioning the way it was intended to, and it stops being about informed citizens making decisions, right? And it becomes about controlled narratives driving outcomes, and let alone you're voting for your own demise the whole time. I'll give you an example. Look at Zaran Mudami. He just backtracked it today. I came to find out this past weekend on this Saturday, because the recording of this video obviously is on a Sunday, is March 28th. But March 27th, which was yesterday or Saturday, Zaran Mudami basically backtracked on his free housing initiative, right? The thing that he campaigned on about giving New Yorkers free housing and affordable housing, and everybody should be able to live in New York, and the next person and big companies and the rich should pay their fair share, and making sure that the next person can pay for someone to be able to live in New York. And common sense would say, well, if an individual, why do I have to work hard and bust my behind and then pay for another person to live in a city they can't afford? But see, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, basically said, we're not giving you the money, Jerron. And now the New Yorkers are portrayed, because it's nothing free. Nothing is free, right? And also it makes the Democrats look bad going into the midterms, which is 8 months away, because then it looks like, okay, now you guys are basically throwing money at problems, thinking that's the ultimate solution, and then you're going to raise it again. Not to mention that Zaran Mudami is misinforming people. This is what I mean by civic education, for example, because he's saying that, oh, New York is in debt. But former New York Mayor Eric Adams already said, first of all, before you leave office as a mayor, you have to make sure the books are balanced. So Zaran Mudami is lying and saying that is a budget deficit in New York when the books were balanced. It's just not the number budget wise, or the number and the amount that Zaran Mudami wants to spend. So it wasn't that former New York Mayor Eric Adams didn't do his job in balancing the books and making sure that everything was in the green and there was no negative or no debt. Is that it didn't meet Zaran Mudami needs and how much he wanted to spend. So at the end of the day, I say all this to say what this all comes down to is awareness and responsibility, family. Because once you understand what's happening, you can't unsee it. You start to recognize the patterns, the messaging, the strategies, and you realize that a lot of what's being presented to the public is not the full picture. And the reality is, we don't need to convince everybody. That's not realistic. But if enough people start paying attention, if enough people start asking questions, which critical thinking used to be very essential, especially with me growing up as a 1999 baby, we had to ask who, what, where, why, right? If enough people start having real conversations, because conversations are good, even if we agree to disagree, it's just productive, like we're having right now in a conversation. But it's productive because you see different perspectives, which then moves the needle because then we can see what really works. Who wants to operate or speak in an echo chamber when it could be another solution that's far way greater than what I'm thinking and you guys may be saying in the comments? So let's come together. We don't have to fight, bicker, or be mad at each other. But it has come to this state in this day and age, president currently today, where if you disagree with somebody, you're already you're a bad person. You're a demon. And it shouldn't be like that, right? Out of love, we can share and think for ourselves, and then also positively encourage productive conversation, even if we don't agree on what we're saying, but we still having a conversation, which then we can propel each other or push each other to do more information or research to look into. And still, if the verdict happens to be that we still see things differently, it doesn't, at least we traded information, right? Look on the bright side of things. At least we are talking about it, having a discussion, and not just operating on the one-sided, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So I say all that to say, if enough people start having real conversations instead of just repeating headlines, that's when things begin to shift. That's when accountability starts to come into the system. But it requires effort. It requires people being willing to step outside of their comfort zone to challenge what they've been told with all these clips that I showed you, and to engage with information honestly. Because if we continue to stay silent, if we continue to assume that things will just fix themselves, then nothing changes. And the same strategies that are being used today will continue to be used tomorrow. And the consequences will only get worse. So this is bigger than politics. This is about the direction of the country, the integrity of the system, and the future for the next generation, which I'm always advocating about. And I've said numerous times in my videos and throughout this channel. I definitely, I don't know about Nancy Pelosi, but I am very, very genuine and sincere. And I really care about the next generation. Right. I have a little guy, and you want to make sure that the country is going in the right direction, right? All the privileges, all the, the advantages of this beautiful country, and so much bloodshed, and, individuals fighting to enjoy the privilege that everyday Americans and legal citizens that came over and done things the right way in this country, legal immigrants, enjoy, and being able to just provide for our families and, you know, laugh again, be happy, have a good time, go out, right? People don't laugh that much nowadays, man. People don't look on the bright side no more. Everything's so negative. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about everything that's going on? Do you think people are fully informed, or do you think there is a major disconnect between perception and reality? Drop your thoughts in the comment. Hit the like button if you got value from this video. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and make sure you turn on your post notifications so you don't miss the next one. Now, as I wrap up, I want to close with this, right? Wrapping up. As always, my purpose is just to be the light and salt of the earth, to stand on truth even when it's uncomfortable, and to bring in clarity in a world that is full of confusion. And I want to leave you with this, because at the end of the day, this is not just political, okay? This is spiritual as well. The Bible says in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." And that right there is everything we talked about in this video. Because when people are operating in fear, confusion, and misinformation, they are easier to control. But God calls us to have a sound mind, meaning we are supposed to seek truth, think critically, and not be led blindly by narratives or pressure. Power means standing firm in what is right, even when it's unpopular. And love means we don't move with hate. We move with purpose, with clarity, and with a desire for what is good and just for everyone. That's how you combat chaos. That's how you restore order. And that's how you stay grounded when everything around you feels unstable. Are you operating with a sound mind rooted in truth? Or are you allowing fear, confusion, and outside influence to shape the way you think and live every single day? And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, we just having a conversation. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. Catch you in the next one, family. Love you.